Settle into the sleepy mind channel. Tonight we explore frogs and toads. These amphibians live a double life, beginning in water before moving onto land as fully formed animals. If you enjoy these kinds of factual stories, like and subscribe for more. New videos are posted weekly. Let us begin. Frogs and toads belong to a group of animals known as amphibians, a term that describes a life divided between water and land. This definition reflects a precise biological pattern in which development begins in aquatic environments before shifting into terrestrial living conditions. Eggs are laid in water, surrounded by soft gelatin layers that protect developing embryos while allowing oxygen to pass through their surface. Inside each egg, early growth depends on dissolved oxygen moving directly into the body through thin outer membranes. After a period of development, these eggs hatch into tadpoles, a stage that closely resembles fish in both form and function. Tadpoles breathe using gills, extracting oxygen from water as it flows across delicate respiratory surfaces. Their bodies are built for swimming, with long tails providing propulsion while limbs are not yet present. At this stage, feeding behavior focuses on algae and microscopic plant material, allowing rapid growth in nutrient-rich aquatic environments. As development continues, internal changes begin to reshape the body into a form suited for life on land. Hind legs emerge first, providing support in shallow water, while movement remains primarily tail-driven. Front legs follow, completing the system needed for walking and jumping. At the same time, lungs develop to replace gills, allowing oxygen to be taken from the air instead of water. The tail gradually shrinks as stored nutrients are absorbed into the body, fueling the final stages of transformation. This transformation represents a complete restructuring of the body rather than simple growth or enlargement. The digestive system shifts from processing plant material to handling animal prey that requires stronger enzymes and different absorption processes. Sensory systems adjust to detect movement in air rather than vibrations in water, increasing responsiveness to insects and predators. Muscle system strengthens to support jumping instead of continuous swimming, allowing bursts of movement powered by stored energy in the hind limbs. Chemical signals inside the body control each stage of this transformation with precise timing and coordination. Hormones regulate when limbs grow, when lungs activate, and when the tail begins to disappear through gradual absorption. If this sequence is disrupted, development can fail, preventing the transition to a fully functioning adult. When the process completes successfully, the result is a frog capable of breathing air, moving across land, and hunting active prey using coordinated sensory and muscular systems. The ability to live between water and land connects modern frogs to their ancient origins within early vertebrate evolution. Amphibians were among the first animals to move out of aquatic environments and establish life on land using weight-bearing limbs and air-breathing lungs. This transition required structural changes that allowed the body to resist gravity, prevent dehydration, and maintain internal balance outside water. Fossil evidence shows that frog-like ancestors existed hundreds of millions of years ago, surviving environmental shifts that reshaped ecosystems across the planet. These early amphibians lived during a period when life expanded beyond water, creating new ecological opportunities on land. Over time, evolutionary pressure shaped bodies that could function in both environments without losing connection to aquatic reproduction. Modern frogs retain this balance, combining water-based reproduction with land-based survival strategies. This dual dependence explains why access to moisture remains essential, even for species that spend most of their adult life on land. Although frogs and toads are often described as separate animals, they belong to the same biological group and share a common system. The term toad describes frogs that have adapted to drier environments through changes in skin texture and behavior. Frogs typically have smooth skin that remains moist through continuous mucus secretion, allowing oxygen to pass efficiently across the surface. Toads develop thicker, drier skin that reduces water loss and contains glands that produce defensive chemicals during physical contact with predators. Differences in movement also reflect these environmental adaptations and survival needs. Frogs are built for powerful jumping, using long hind legs to generate force that launches the body across large distances. This capacity allows rapid escape from predators and efficient travel between water sources. Toads tend to move with shorter hops or walking motions, conserving energy while navigating terrain where long jumps are less practical and less necessary. The skin of frogs performs several essential functions that support survival across both aquatic and terrestrial environments. It allows oxygen to enter the bloodstream directly, supplementing the use of lungs during respiration. As this continues, requires constant moisture, as dry skin cannot support efficient gas exchange. At the same time, water moves through the skin into the body, allowing frogs to absorb moisture directly from their surroundings without drinking. This permeability creates both strength and vulnerability within the same biological system. While it allows flexibility in breathing and hydration, it also exposes frogs to substances present in water and soil. Chemicals such as pollutants or toxins can pass directly through the skin into the bloodstream, affecting internal systems rapidly. Because of this sensitivity, frogs respond quickly to environmental change, making them reliable indicators of ecosystem health across both water and land. Frogs exist across a wide range of habitats, demonstrating their ability to adapt to different environmental conditions through evolutionary change. They can be found in tropical rainforests, where humidity remains constant, as well as deserts, where survival depends on moisture conservation strategies. They also inhabit cold mountain regions and urban environments where water sources remain available for reproduction. More than 7,000 species have been identified, each shaped by local conditions that influence behavior, size, and survival strategies. Many species return to specific locations to reproduce, often traveling significant distances to reach the same water source where they were born. This behavior ensures that eggs are placed in environments known to support successful development and survival. The ability to locate these breeding sites suggests sensitivity to environmental cues such as temperature, moisture, and chemical composition within the water. These cues guide movement and timing, ensuring reproduction occurs under suitable conditions. The range of body size among frogs reflects the diversity of ecological roles they occupy across different environments. The larger species can grow to lengths exceeding 30 centimeters, using strong limbs to move through fast-flowing water where stability and strength are required. At the opposite extreme, the smallest species measure only a few millimeters, living within leaf litter where moisture remains trapped near the ground surface, and predators are less likely to detect movement. Body size influences feeding behavior, predator exposure, and energy use across different species. Larger frogs can consume a wider range of prey, including small vertebrates, while smaller frogs focus on insects and microscopic organisms that match their scale. Smaller size allows access to narrow spaces and reduces visibility to predators, while larger size provides strength and the ability to dominate feeding opportunities within certain habitats. Movement across land and water requires specialized systems that support different forms of locomotion. Frogs possess long hind limbs with strong muscles that store and release energy during rapid movement. This allows powerful jumps that cover distances many times the length of the body, providing an effective escape mechanism from predators. The skeletal system supports this movement through reinforced joints that absorb impact during landing and maintain structural stability. In aquatic environments, webbed feet increase surface area, allowing stronger propulsion through water during swimming. Frogs extend their legs and push against the water to generate forward movement, enabling both hunting and escape behavior. This capacity to transition smoothly between swimming and jumping allows frogs to respond quickly to changing conditions in their surroundings. Breathing systems must support both air and water-based oxygen intake, requiring flexibility in respiratory function. Adult frogs use lungs to breathe air, drawing oxygen into internal systems that distribute it through the bloodstream. When submerged, oxygen can pass directly through the skin, allowing continued respiration without access to air. This dual system allows frogs to survive in environments where oxygen levels fluctuate or remain low. Circulation supports this process through a heart that moves blood between respiratory surfaces and body tissues. Oxygen collected from both lungs and skin is delivered to cells that require energy for movement and survival. In this system allows frogs to function in conditions that would limit many other animals, including stagnant water where oxygen availability remains low. The combination of ancient origin, environmental flexibility, and specialized anatomy explains how frogs and toads continue to exist across nearly every continent. Their presence reflects long-term survival through changing climates, shifting ecosystems, and evolving predator relationships. Every feature of their biology connects directly to the demands of living between water and land, where survival depends on maintaining balance across both environments at every stage of life. Frogs exist in extraordinary variety across the planet, filling environments that range from dense tropical forests to dry, open landscapes where water appears only seasonally. This diversity reflects long periods of adaptation, where each species has developed traits suited to specific conditions of temperature, moisture, and available food. More than 7,000 species have been identified, each occupying a role within its environment that contributes to the stability of the surrounding ecosystem. These species can be found on every continent except Antarctica, where freezing conditions prevent the survival of amphibians that depend on liquid water for reproduction and skin function. This wide distribution demonstrates how flexible frog biology can be when shaped by environmental pressures. In tropical regions, frogs often thrive in constant warmth and high humidity, allowing year-round activity and frequent breeding cycles. In contrast, frogs living in temperate regions must respond to seasonal changes that affect temperature and water availability. During colder months, activity slows, and survival depends on finding protected spaces where body functions can continue at reduced levels. These differences in climate require adjustments in behavior, physiology, and timing of reproduction. Frogs are closely tied to water, particularly during the early stages of life, which influences where populations can establish and persist. Even species that spend most of their adult lives on land must return to water to reproduce, ensuring that eggs develop in conditions that support growth and survival. Because of this requirement, frogs are often concentrated around ponds, streams, wetlands, and temporary pools formed by rainfall. The presence of these water sources determines the distribution of many species, shaping movement patterns and population density. Many frogs display a strong tendency to return to the same breeding sites each year, a behavior that ensures consistency in reproductive success. This return movement involves locating familiar water bodies that previously supported successful development from egg to adult. The ability to find these sites suggests sensitivity to environmental signals such as moisture levels, temperature patterns, and chemical composition within the water. By returning to proven locations, frogs reduce the risk associated with laying eggs in unfamiliar or unsuitable environments. Within these environments, frogs occupy multiple roles that connect different parts of the food chain. As predators, they consume large numbers of insects and other small invertebrates, helping to regulate populations that might otherwise grow unchecked. This feeding behavior reduces the presence of pests and contributes to balance within ecosystems, where insect populations can fluctuate rapidly. At the same time, frogs serve as prey for a wide range of animals, including birds, snakes, fish, and mammals, that rely on them as a food source. This dual role as both predator and prey places frogs in a central position within ecological systems. Energy moves through the ecosystem as frogs consume smaller organisms and are then consumed by larger ones. This movement of energy supports the survival of multiple species and maintains the system of the food web. When frog populations decline, the effects can spread through the ecosystem, altering predator behavior and allowing prey populations to increase beyond stable levels. The physical forms of frogs vary widely, reflecting the environments they inhabit and the roles they perform. Some species develop long limbs suited for powerful jumping across open ground, while others have shorter limbs that support walking or climbing within dense vegetation. Body shape can be compact and robust or slender and lightweight, depending on whether strength or agility provides a greater advantage. These variations allow frogs to move efficiently within their specific habitats, whether navigating tree branches, riverbanks, or forest floors. Size also varies dramatically, influencing how frogs interact with their environment. The larger species possess the strength to capture larger prey and defend territory, while smaller species rely on concealment and access to tight spaces where predators cannot reach. Smaller frogs often live among leaf litter or within small crevices, where moisture is retained and protection is readily available. Larger frogs may dominate feeding areas where food is abundant, using size as an advantage in competition. Coloration plays an important role in survival, with patterns and shades that match the surrounding environment. Many frogs display green, brown, or mottled skin that blends with leaves, soil, or water surfaces, reducing visibility to predators. This camouflage allows frogs to remain undetected while waiting for prey or avoiding detection by larger animals. Some species can adjust their color slightly over time, matching changes in their surroundings and maintaining effective concealment. In contrast to camouflage, some frogs use bright colors as a warning signal to potential predators. These colors indicate the presence of toxins within the skin, discouraging attacks by making the frog unpalatable or harmful to consume. Predators that attempt to eat such frogs often experience immediate negative effects, learning to avoid similar colors in the future. This form of defense relies on recognition, where visibility becomes a protective advantage rather than a risk. Skin system supports these defensive strategies while also maintaining essential biological functions. Mucus secreted by the skin helps retain moisture, preventing dehydration and supporting gas exchange across the surface. In species with toxic defenses, glands within the skin produce chemicals that can irritate or harm predators during contact. These chemical defenses vary in strength, with some species producing mild deterrents and others capable of delivering powerful toxins. Movement remains one of the most important survival tools for frogs, allowing rapid response to threats and efficient access to resources. Jumping provides an immediate escape mechanism, where stored energy in the hind limbs is released in a single motion that propels the body away from danger. This explosive movement reduces the time available for predators to react, increasing the chances of survival during encounters. Swimming ability complements this movement, particularly for species that rely on aquatic environments for feeding or protection. Webbed feet increase the effectiveness of each movement through water, allowing frogs to travel quickly and change direction when necessary. Strong swimming allows access to underwater hiding places, reducing exposure to predators that hunt above the surface. In tree-dwelling species, movement extends into vertical environments where climbing becomes essential. Specialized toe pads allow frogs to adhere to smooth surfaces, using microscopic systems and moisture to create a strong grip. This capacity allows access to elevated areas where food sources may be abundant and competition may be reduced. Climbing also provides escape routes that are unavailable to ground-based predators. Feeding behavior depends on the ability to detect and capture prey with speed and accuracy. Frogs rely heavily on movement detection, responding quickly to the presence of insects or other small animals within range. Once prey is identified, the frog uses its tongue to capture it in a rapid extension and retraction movement. The tongue is coated with a sticky substance that ensures prey remains attached during retrieval. This feeding method allows frogs to consume prey quickly, reducing the chance of escape and minimizing the time spent exposed to predators. Food is swallowed whole, with the body processing nutrients through a digestive system adapted for animal prey. Larger species expand their diet to include small vertebrates, increasing their role within the food chain and influencing the populations of other species within their environment. Sensory systems support these behaviors by providing information about the surrounding environment. Eyes positioned on the top of the head allow a wide field of view, helping detect movement from multiple directions. This positioning allows frogs to remain partially submerged while observing both above and below the water surface. Vision is particularly important in low-light conditions, where many species are most active. Hearing also plays a key role, with systems that detect vibrations in both air and water. Frogs use sound to locate mates, identify rivals, and detect approaching threats. The ability to process sound across different environments allows communication even when visibility is limited. Vibrations in the ground or water provide additional information, helping frogs respond to changes in their surroundings before direct contact occurs. These combined adaptations allow frogs to survive within environments that change over time, responding to variations in temperature, moisture, and resource availability. Each trait reflects a solution to a specific challenge, shaped by long periods of evolutionary pressure. The result is a group of animals capable of functioning across multiple environments while maintaining the delicate balance required for their survival. The presence of frogs within an ecosystem provides insight into the condition of that environment. Because their skin absorbs substances directly, they are highly sensitive to pollution and changes in water quality. A decline in frog populations often signals problems that may affect other species, including those less immediately responsive to environmental change. This sensitivity makes frogs valuable indicators of ecological health. Through their roles as predators, prey, and indicators, frogs connect different parts of the natural world in ways that extend beyond their size. Their survival depends on the stability of both water and land environments, linking these systems through their life cycle and behavior. As conditions change, frogs respond quickly, reflecting shifts that may not yet be visible in other parts of the ecosystem. This connection between frogs and their environment highlights the importance of maintaining balance within natural systems. Changes that affect water quality, habitat availability, or climate conditions can disrupt the delicate interactions that support frog populations. Understanding these relationships provides insight into the broader functioning of ecosystems and the role each species plays within them. Frogs rely on a combination of internal systems and external adaptations that allow survival in environments where conditions can shift between water and land within short periods. One of the most important systems supporting this flexibility is respiration, which must function efficiently in both air and water. Unlike many land animals that depend entirely on lungs, frogs use a dual method of breathing that allows oxygen to enter the body through more than one pathway. Adult frogs possess lungs that draw in air and extract oxygen through internal respiratory surfaces. Air enters through the nostrils and is pushed into the lungs by movements of the throat rather than the chest. This method differs from mammals, where the expansion of the rib cage pulls air inward. In frogs, the mouth and throat act as a pump, forcing air into the lungs through controlled muscular movements. In this system, allows breathing even when the body remains still, conserving energy while maintaining oxygen intake. In addition to lungs, frogs absorb oxygen directly through their skin, a process that becomes especially important when submerged in water. The skin must remain moist to allow oxygen to dissolve and pass through into the bloodstream. This capacity allows frogs to remain underwater for extended periods without needing to surface for air. Blood vessels located close to the skin surface transport oxygen throughout the body, supporting cellular activity during submersion. The circulatory system supports this dual breathing method through a heart designed to manage oxygen flow from different sources. Frogs possess a three-chambered heart consisting of two atria and one ventricle. Oxygen-rich blood, returning from the lungs, mixes partially with oxygen, poor blood, returning from the body, within the ventricle. This mixture is then distributed to both the lungs and the rest of the body, allowing flexible oxygen delivery, depending on whether the frog is in water or on land. In this system does not separate oxygenated and deoxygenated blood as completely as in mammals, but it provides sufficient efficiency for amphibian metabolism. When underwater, more blood is directed toward the skin, allowing oxygen absorbed through the skin to support body functions. When on land, the lungs take on a greater role, increasing oxygen intake from the air. This shifting balance allows frogs to adjust quickly to changes in environment without interrupting essential processes. Frog skin plays a central role in maintaining this system, acting as both a respiratory surface and a barrier between the body and the environment. The skin must remain thin enough to allow gas exchange, yet strong enough to protect internal tissues from damage. Mucus secreted across the surface keeps the skin moist, supporting oxygen absorption while also reducing friction during movement. This constant production of mucus requires energy and access to water, reinforcing the need for humid or wet environments. Because the skin is permeable, substances in the environment can enter the body directly. This includes both beneficial elements, such as water, and harmful substances, such as pollutants or toxins. Chemicals present in water or soil can pass through the skin and enter the bloodstream without filtration. This direct exposure increases vulnerability, but also provides a rapid response system to environmental change, as frogs react quickly to conditions that affect their survival. Frogs have developed additional features that support their ability to interact with water and air effectively. When submerged, frogs can close their nostrils to prevent water from entering the respiratory system. This allows them to rely entirely on skin-based respiration while underwater. At the same time, the positioning of the eyes and nostrils on the top of the head allows frogs to remain mostly submerged while still observing the environment and breathing when necessary. Sensory systems play a critical role in detecting changes within the environment, guiding behavior that supports survival. Frogs possess large eyes positioned to provide a wide field of view, allowing detection of movement from multiple directions. This visual arrangement supports both hunting and predator avoidance, as frogs can remain partially hidden while monitoring activity around them. The eyes are adapted to function in low-light conditions, supporting activity during dawn, dusk, and night. A unique feature of frog anatomy involves the use of the eyes during feeding. When swallowing prey, the eyes move downward into the skull, helping push food into the throat. This movement assists in transferring prey from the mouth to the digestive system, ensuring efficient consumption. The connection between visual and feeding systems demonstrates how multiple functions can be integrated within a single system. Frogs also possess a transparent protective layer over the eyes, known as a nictitating membrane. This membrane acts as a protective covering when the frog is underwater or exposed to debris. It allows the frog to maintain vision while shielding the eyes from damage, supporting continuous awareness of the environment during movement through water or vegetation. This feature is particularly important for species that spend significant time submerged or in dense habitats. Hearing provides another essential sense that supports communication and environmental awareness. Frogs possess external eardrums located just behind the eyes, allowing detection of sound vibrations in both air and water. These systems transmit sound to internal organs that interpret frequency and intensity, enabling frogs to recognize calls from other individuals and detect approaching threats. The ability to hear across different mediums supports survival in both aquatic and terrestrial environments. Frogs are particularly sensitive to vibrations, which can signal the presence of predators or other disturbances. Vibrations traveling through water or ground surfaces provide early warning signals that allow frogs to respond before direct contact occurs. This sensitivity extends even to developing embryos, which can detect disturbances around their eggs and respond by hatching early when danger is present. This early response increases the chances of survival by reducing exposure to predators that target stationary eggs. Feeding behavior relies on rapid detection and capture of moving prey. Frogs are primarily carnivorous, consuming insects, worms, and other small animals that provide the energy required for growth and activity. The method of capturing prey involves a highly specialized tongue that extends rapidly from the mouth to contact the target. The tongue is attached at the front of the mouth, allowing it to flip outward and reach prey with speed. The surface of the tongue is coated with a sticky substance that ensures prey adheres upon contact. Once the prey is captured, the tongue retracts quickly, bringing the food into the mouth where it is swallowed whole. As this continues occurs in a fraction of a second, minimizing the chance of escape and reducing exposure to predators during feeding. The speed and efficiency of this mechanism allow frogs to capture prey without prolonged pursuit. Frogs do not chew their food, relying instead on swallowing prey whole and processing it internally. The digestive system breaks down food using enzymes that extract nutrients necessary for survival. Larger frogs expand their diet to include a wider range of prey, sometimes consuming small vertebrates in addition to insects. This dietary flexibility allows frogs to adapt to available food sources within their environment. The ability to feed efficiently supports energy demands associated with movement, growth, and reproduction. Frogs must maintain sufficient energy reserves to support rapid bursts of activity, particularly when escaping predators or capturing prey. The combination of efficient feeding and flexible respiration allows frogs to maintain energy balance, even in environments where conditions change frequently. Communication among frogs relies heavily on sound, particularly during breeding periods when individuals must locate mates. Male frogs produce calls that vary in tone, rhythm, and intensity depending on the species. These calls are generated using vocal sacs that inflate and amplify sound, allowing it to travel over long distances. The expansion and contraction of the vocal sac produce vibrations that carry through air and water, reaching potential mates within the surrounding area. Each species produces a distinct call that allows individuals to identify members of their own group. This specificity reduces confusion during breeding and ensures successful reproduction between compatible individuals. Female frogs respond to these calls by selecting mates based on sound characteristics, including volume and consistency. This selection process influences reproductive success and contributes to the continuation of species-specific traits. Calling behavior often occurs at night, when environmental conditions reduce interference from predators and background noise. Cooler temperatures and increased humidity support activity during these periods, allowing frogs to gather near breeding sites and engage in communication. The concentration of calling individuals creates complex sound environments where multiple species may be heard simultaneously. In addition to sound, frogs use body posture and movement as forms of communication. Some species inflate their bodies or change position to appear larger when interacting with rivals or responding to threats. These visual signals complement vocal communication, providing additional information about size, strength, and readiness to compete or defend territory. The combination of sound and movement creates a communication system that supports survival and reproduction. These sensory and communication systems operate together to guide behavior within complex environments. Frogs must detect prey, avoid predators, locate mates, and respond to environmental changes using information gathered through multiple channels. The integration of vision, hearing, touch, and movement allows frogs to function effectively within both aquatic and terrestrial habitats. The effectiveness of these systems reflects long periods of adaptation, where each feature contributes to survival under specific conditions. The ability to breathe through skin, detect vibrations, capture prey with speed, and communicate across distances creates a network of functions that support life in changing environments. These combined traits allow frogs to maintain their position within ecosystems that depend on balance between water and land. The outer surface of a frog's body performs far more than simple protection, acting as a living system that directly interacts with the surrounding environment. This skin remains thin, flexible, and permeable, allowing oxygen and water to pass into the body while also carrying pigments and chemical compounds that influence survival. Every feature of this surface reflects the balance between exposure and defense, where the body must remain open enough to function, yet protected enough to avoid harm. This balance shapes how frogs move, breathe, and avoid detection within their environment. Many frogs rely on camouflage as a primary method of protection, using color and pattern to blend into their surroundings with precision. Shades of green, brown, and muted patterns match leaves, soil, and water surfaces, allowing the frog to remain visually undetected by predators. When the body remains still, this camouflage becomes highly effective, reducing contrast between the frog and the background. Predators that rely on movement to locate prey often fail to detect frogs that remain motionless within matching surroundings. The effectiveness of camouflage depends not only on color, but also on behavior and positioning. Frogs often select resting places that enhance their concealment, such as leaves that match their body tone or surfaces that break up their outline. By aligning their body with natural patterns, they reduce the chance of detection even when viewed at close range. This combination of color matching and controlled stillness creates a defense that requires minimal energy while providing consistent protection. Some species extend this strategy further through structural adaptation, as seen in frogs with partially transparent skin on the underside of the body. In these frogs, internal organs can be seen through the surface, reducing visibility when viewed from below. Light passing through leaves or reflecting off water creates a background that the frog closely matches, making it difficult for predators to distinguish the frog from its surroundings. This form of camouflage depends on light conditions rather than pigmentation alone, creating an additional layer of concealment. In contrast to camouflage, certain frogs use bright colors to signal danger rather than avoid detection. These colors, often vivid combinations of red, blue, yellow, or black, indicate the presence of toxins within the skin. This strategy relies on visibility rather than concealment, allowing predators to recognize and avoid the frog before contact occurs. The effectiveness of this warning depends on predator learning, where previous negative experiences create long-term avoidance of similar color patterns. Among the most well-known examples are poison-producing frogs that carry powerful toxins within their skin. These toxins originate from compounds found in the insects they consume, which are absorbed and stored within specialized glands. When a predator makes contact, these substances interfere with nerve signals, producing effects that range from discomfort to paralysis. This chemical defense allows the frog to avoid physical struggle, relying instead on the reaction of the predator to prevent further attack. The presence of bright color combined with toxicity creates a clear signal that benefits both predator and prey. The predator avoids harm by recognizing the warning, while the frog avoids injury by discouraging attack. This relationship depends on repeated encounters within the ecosystem, where predators learn through experience and adjust their behavior accordingly. Over time, this creates a stable pattern where brightly colored frogs are less likely to be targeted. Not all brightly colored frogs rely on toxins, as some species use color variation to improve camouflage within changing environments. Certain frogs can shift their skin tone gradually, moving between green and brown, depending on surrounding conditions. This capacity allows them to match leaves during periods of growth and adjust to darker tones when vegetation changes. The change occurs over time, allowing the frog to remain concealed even as the environment shifts. Chemical defense extends beyond highly toxic species, with many frogs producing substances that create unpleasant taste or irritation when attacked. Toads possess specialized glands located behind the eyes that store and release these compounds during physical contact. When pressure is applied, these glands release chemicals that make the frog unappealing or harmful to consume. This defense discourages predators after initial contact, reducing the likelihood of repeated attacks. These defensive systems combine color, system, and chemistry to create multiple layers of protection. Camouflage reduces the chance of detection, warning colors prevent attack through recognition, and chemical defenses provide protection when contact occurs. Each layer contributes to survival, allowing frogs to respond to different types of threats without relying on a single method of defense. Environmental conditions introduce additional challenges that require physiological responses beyond skin-based protection. Frogs are ectothermic, meaning their body temperature depends on the surrounding environment rather than internal heat production. This dependency influences activity levels, as movement, feeding, and reproduction are all affected by temperature. When conditions become unfavorable, frogs must adjust behavior and internal processes to maintain survival. In colder environments, some frogs survive extreme conditions through a process that allows their bodies to tolerate freezing. During winter, Ice forms within parts of the body, while critical systems remain protected by chemical compounds that prevent cellular damage. The heart may stop, and circulation slows significantly, reducing energy use when food is unavailable. This controlled state allows the frog to survive periods that would otherwise be fatal. The ability to survive freezing depends on the production of substances that act as natural antifreeze within the body. These compounds prevent damage to cells by controlling the formation of ice and maintaining the integrity of internal systems. When temperatures rise, the ice melts and normal function resumes, allowing the frog to continue its life cycle without permanent harm. As this continues, represents a precise adaptation to seasonal environmental conditions. In hot or dry environments, frogs face the opposite challenge, where water loss threatens survival. Some species respond by burrowing into soil or leaf litter, where moisture levels remain more stable than at the surface. Within these protected spaces, frogs reduce activity and enter a state of dormancy that conserves both water and energy. This state allows survival during extended periods without rainfall. Certain species develop additional protection by forming layers around their bodies that reduce water loss. These layers trap moisture close to the skin, slowing evaporation and maintaining hydration during dry conditions. Some frogs store water internally, using it gradually to support essential functions while remaining inactive. This stored water provides a reserve that extends survival until environmental conditions improve. When rainfall returns, these frogs emerge from their dormant state and resume normal activity. Feeding, movement, and reproduction begin again as moisture levels increase and conditions support growth. This cycle of dormancy and reactivation allows frogs to survive in environments where water availability changes dramatically over time. Adaptations also extend to environments where water contains higher levels of salt, which can disrupt internal balance in most amphibians. Certain frogs have developed mechanisms that allow them to tolerate brackish conditions by regulating salt levels within the body. This regulation prevents dehydration and maintains stable internal conditions despite external salinity. Access to these environments expands habitat range and reduces competition. These survival strategies reflect the challenges associated with living between water and land, where environmental conditions can shift rapidly. Frogs must maintain internal balance while responding to changes in temperature, moisture, and chemical composition. Each adaptation provides a solution to a specific challenge, contributing to overall resilience across different habitats. The combination of skin-based defense, environmental response, and physiological flexibility allows frogs to persist in conditions that would limit many other animals. These systems operate together, supporting survival through both immediate reactions and long-term adaptation. By maintaining balance between exposure and protection, frogs continue to survive across a wide range of environments shaped by constant change. Frogs depend heavily on their senses to navigate environments that shift between light and darkness, water and land, movement and stillness. Many species are most active during low light conditions, particularly at night, when reduced visibility lowers the risk of predation while increasing access to prey. This pattern of activity requires sensory systems that function effectively in darkness, allowing frogs to detect movement, locate food, and respond to threats with precision. Each sense contributes to survival, by providing specific information about the surrounding environment. Vision plays a central role in how frogs interact with their surroundings, with eyes positioned high on the head to provide a wide field of view. This placement allows frogs to remain partially hidden while still observing activity above and around them. When sitting in water, only the eyes and nostrils may be visible, reducing exposure while maintaining awareness. The shape and size of the eyes enhance the ability to detect movement, which is essential for both hunting and avoiding predators. Frog eyes are adapted to function in low light conditions, allowing detection of shapes and motion even when light levels are minimal. Specialized cells within the eye respond to dim light, increasing sensitivity during dawn, dusk, and nighttime activity. This adaptation allows frogs to remain active when many predators are less effective, creating an advantage in both feeding and survival. Movement detection becomes a primary focus of vision, with frogs responding quickly to changes in their field of view. A unique feature of frog anatomy connects vision directly to feeding behavior. When a frog swallows prey, the eyes move downward into the skull, pressing against the roof of the mouth. This movement helps push food into the throat, assisting the swallowing process. The connection between eye movement and feeding demonstrates how multiple functions can be integrated within a single system, increasing efficiency within the body. Protection of the eyes is supported by a transparent layer known as a nictitating membrane. This membrane covers the eye when the frog is underwater or exposed to debris, acting as a protective barrier while still allowing vision. Unlike eyelids that block sight completely, this membrane maintains visual awareness during movement through water or vegetation. This feature supports continuous observation of the environment, even under conditions that might otherwise damage sensitive tissues. Hearing provides another essential source of information, allowing frogs to detect sound across both air and water. A visible circular system located behind each eye serves as the external eardrum, capturing vibrations from the surrounding environment. These vibrations are transmitted to internal systems that interpret sound, enabling frogs to recognize calls from other individuals and detect approaching threats. The ability to hear in different environments supports communication and awareness under varying conditions. Frogs are also sensitive to vibrations that travel through water and ground surfaces. These vibrations provide early warning signals of movement nearby, allowing frogs to respond before direct contact occurs. Even slight disturbances can trigger a reaction, prompting the frog to remain still or move away from potential danger. This sensitivity enhances survival by providing information that may not be visible or audible through other senses. In some cases, this sensitivity begins before the frog has fully developed. Embryos within eggs can detect vibrations caused by predators, triggering early hatching as a response to danger. By leaving the egg sooner, the developing tadpole increases its chance of survival by escaping immediate threats. This behavior demonstrates how sensory systems influence survival from the earliest stages of life. Feeding behavior relies on the ability to detect and capture moving prey quickly and accurately. Frogs are primarily carnivorous, feeding on insects, worms, and other small animals that provide the energy needed for growth and activity. The process begins with visual detection, where the frog identifies movement within range. Once prey is located, the body prepares for rapid capture using specialized systems designed for speed and precision. The tongue plays a central role in this process, functioning as a projectile mechanism that extends outward to capture prey. Attached at the front of the mouth, the tongue flips forward in a rapid motion, reaching the target in a fraction of a second. The surface of the tongue is coated with a sticky substance that ensures prey adheres upon contact. Once captured, the tongue retracts quickly, bringing the prey into the mouth before it can escape. This feeding method reduces the need for prolonged pursuit, allowing frogs to remain still until the moment of capture. By minimizing movement, frogs reduce the risk of attracting predators while hunting. The speed of the tongue ensures that prey has little chance to react, increasing feeding success and conserving energy. This efficiency supports survival in environments where both prey and predators respond quickly to movement. Frogs do not chew their food, relying instead on swallowing prey whole. After capture, the frog positions the prey within the mouth and uses coordinated movements to push it into the throat. The previously described movement of the eyes assists in this process, ensuring that food moves smoothly into the digestive system. This method allows rapid consumption, reducing the time spent exposed during feeding. Diet varies depending on the size and species of the frog, with larger individuals capable of consuming a wider range of prey. Smaller frogs focus on insects and tiny invertebrates, while larger species may consume small vertebrates such as fish, birds, or other frogs. This variation in diet reflects the relationship between body size and feeding capability, influencing how each species interacts with its environment. The ability to consume a range of prey allows frogs to adapt to changes in food availability. When certain prey becomes scarce, frogs may shift to alternative sources that provide similar nutritional value. This flexibility supports survival in environments where food supply fluctuates due to seasonal or environmental changes. Efficient feeding ensures that frogs maintain the energy required for movement, growth, and reproduction. Each species produces a distinct call that allows individuals to identify members of their own group. This specificity prevents confusion during breeding, ensuring that mating occurs between compatible individuals. Female frogs respond to these calls by selecting mates based on characteristics such as volume, rhythm, and consistency. This selection process influences reproductive success and shapes the traits that persist within the population. Calling behavior often occurs during nighttime conditions, when reduced light levels provide protection from predators and environmental noise is lower. During these periods, multiple frogs may call simultaneously, creating complex sound environments within breeding areas. The overlap of calls requires frogs to distinguish between different signals, focusing on specific patterns that match their own species. In addition to vocal communication, frogs use physical displays to interact with others. Some species inflate their bodies or adjust posture to appear larger when competing for territory or mates. These visual signals provide information about size and strength, influencing interactions without the need for physical confrontation. This reduces the risk of injury while still allowing competition to occur. The combination of vocal and visual communication creates a system that supports reproduction and social interaction within frog populations. By using sound to attract mates and posture to manage competition, frogs coordinate behavior that ensures successful breeding. These systems operate within environments that can be crowded and dynamic, requiring clear signals to maintain order. All of these sensory and behavioral systems work together to support survival within changing environments. Vision detects movement, hearing interprets sound, vibration sensing provides early warning, and feeding mechanisms capture prey with speed. Communication ensures reproduction, while behavioral responses manage risk and competition. Each function contributes to a larger system that allows frogs to navigate complex conditions. These abilities reflect long periods of adaptation, where each feature has been shaped by the need to respond quickly and efficiently to environmental challenges. The integration of sensory input and physical response allows frogs to operate effectively within both aquatic and terrestrial settings. By combining detection, action, and communication, frogs maintain their position within ecosystems that depend on balance and responsiveness. Frog life begins in water, where reproduction takes place in conditions that support early development. Most frogs lay eggs in clusters known as spawn, which are deposited in ponds, streams, or temporary pools formed by rainfall. These eggs are surrounded by soft gelatin layers that provide protection while allowing oxygen to pass through to the developing embryo. The number of eggs can be large, often reaching hundreds or thousands, increasing the likelihood that at least some will survive despite exposure to predators and environmental hazards. Within each egg, development begins as cells divide and form the basic system of the organism. As this continues, depends on temperature, oxygen availability, and water quality, all of which influence the rate of growth and survival. Warmer conditions often accelerate development, while cooler temperatures slow the process. The surrounding environment must remain stable enough to support these early stages, as sudden changes can disrupt development and reduce survival. When development reaches a certain stage, the eggs hatch into tadpoles, marking the beginning of a fully aquatic phase of life. Tadpoles possess gills that allow them to extract oxygen directly from the water, supporting respiration without access to air. Their bodies are shaped for swimming, with long tails providing propulsion and no developed limbs at this stage. Movement through water allows access to food sources and helps avoid predators that may target stationary organisms. Feeding behavior during this stage differs significantly from that of adult frogs. Tadpoles typically consume algae, plant material, and microscopic organisms found within the water. This diet supports rapid growth, allowing the tadpole to increase in size while building the systems needed for later transformation. The digestive system is adapted to process plant-based material, extracting nutrients that support development during this early phase. As growth continues, the process of metamorphosis begins, transforming the tadpole into an adult frog. This transformation involves coordinated changes across multiple systems within the body. Hind legs appear first, emerging from the sides of the body and gradually increasing in size. These limbs allow the tadpole to begin interacting with the environment in new ways, supporting movement in shallow water and preparing for life on land. Front legs develop next, completing the set of limbs required for walking and jumping. At the same time, internal changes begin to shift the body from aquatic to terrestrial function. Lungs develop and become active, allowing the frog to breathe air instead of relying solely on gills. As lung function increases, the importance of gills decreases, and these systems are gradually absorbed into the body. The tail, once essential for swimming, begins to shrink during this stage, Rather than being discarded, the tail is absorbed into the body and used as a source of energy to support further development. As this continues, ensures that nutrients are not wasted, providing fuel for the growth of limbs, muscles, and other systems required for life on land. The reduction of the tail also changes the overall shape of the body, preparing it for new forms of movement. The digestive system undergoes significant change during metamorphosis, shifting from processing plant material to digesting animal prey. This transition reflects the change in diet that occurs once the frog leaves the water and begins feeding on insects and other small animals. Enzymes within the digestive tract adjust to handle different types of food, ensuring that nutrients can be extracted efficiently from new sources. The skeletal system also changes during this transformation, particularly in relation to movement. The spine shortens and strengthens, supporting the powerful jumps that characterize adult frogs. Bones within the limbs develop to withstand the impact of landing, allowing repeated jumping without injury. These structural changes create a body suited for movement across land, rather than continuous swimming. Hormones control the timing and coordination of these changes, ensuring that each stage occurs in the correct sequence. These chemical signals regulate growth, directing resources to different parts of the body as needed. If this process is disrupted, development may not complete successfully, preventing the transition to a functional adult. The precision of hormonal control ensures that the transformation occurs smoothly under suitable environmental conditions. As metamorphosis nears completion, the young frog, often referred to as a froglet, begins to resemble an adult in both form and behavior. The tail has nearly disappeared, limbs are fully developed, and lungs support breathing in air. At this stage, the frog leaves the water and begins life on land, though it may remain close to moist environments that support hydration and skin function. Not all frog species follow the same developmental pattern, as some have adapted to bypass the free-swimming tadpole stage entirely. In these species, eggs develop in moist environments on land, where conditions support direct transformation into small froglets. This adaptation reduces exposure to aquatic predators and allows development in locations where standing water may not be consistently available. In certain situations, frog embryos can respond to threats even before hatching. Vibrations caused by predators near the eggs can trigger early hatching, allowing the developing tadpole to escape before being consumed. This response increases the chance of survival by reducing the time spent in a vulnerable state. Early hatching may carry risks, but it provides an advantage when immediate danger is present. The life cycle of frogs demonstrates a clear connection between environment and development, where each stage is adapted to specific conditions. The aquatic phase supports rapid growth and feeding on abundant plant material, while the terrestrial phase allows access to new food sources and reduced competition. This division of life stages allows frogs to use different parts of the ecosystem efficiently. Reproduction continues as adult frogs return to water to lay eggs, repeating the cycle that began their own development. This return often occurs during specific seasons when conditions are favorable for egg survival and growth. Timing is critical, as eggs require stable conditions to develop successfully. Environmental cues such as rainfall, temperature, and day length influence when reproduction occurs. This cycle of development from egg to tadpole to adult reflects a strategy that balances risk and opportunity. Large numbers of eggs increase the chance of survival despite high predation, while metamorphosis allows individuals to transition into a new ecological role. Each stage carries its own challenges, but together they create a system that supports continuation across generations. The transformation from aquatic to terrestrial life represents one of the most remarkable processes in animal development. It requires precise coordination of physical and chemical changes, ensuring that each system functions correctly at the right time. The success of this process determines whether the frog can survive and reproduce, making it central to the persistence of species. Through this cycle, frogs connect water and land environments, moving between them as conditions require. Their development reflects the need to balance these environments, using each stage to take advantage of available resources. This connection reinforces the importance of both aquatic and terrestrial habitats in supporting frog populations and maintaining ecological balance. While many frogs follow a reproductive strategy that relies on large numbers of eggs to ensure survival, some species have developed more direct methods of protecting their offspring. These approaches reduce exposure to predators and environmental risks during early development, increasing the likelihood that young frogs reach maturity. Instead of leaving eggs unattended, certain species remain involved throughout the early stages of life, providing protection through physical contact, concealment, or controlled environments. One of the most unusual forms of parental care occurs in species where the male protects developing young within his own body. In this case, fertilized eggs hatch into tadpoles that are taken into a specialized throat pouch normally used for vocalization. Inside this space, the young continue to develop in a protected environment, shielded from external threats such as predators or changes in water conditions. Once development is complete, the young emerge as fully formed frogs, having bypassed many of the dangers associated with free-swimming stages. Another form of protection involves the use of the body surface as a site for development. In certain species, eggs are placed onto the back of the parent, where the skin forms protective pockets around each individual egg. These pockets create a stable environment that shields developing embryos from external threats while maintaining necessary moisture levels. As development continues, the young grow within these systems until they are ready to emerge, reducing exposure to predators during vulnerable stages. Some frogs construct protective environments outside their bodies using materials available within their habitat. Foam nests are created by mixing secretions with water and air, forming a system that holds eggs above or on the surface of water. This foam maintains moisture while providing insulation and protection from predators that target eggs in open water. The system also regulates temperature, supporting consistent development until the eggs hatch. Other species place their eggs on leaves positioned above water, creating a separation between developing embryos and aquatic predators. When the eggs hatch, the young fall directly into the water below, entering the aquatic phase of development at a later stage. This method reduces the risk associated with early exposure, while still allowing access to the environment required for further growth. Transport of offspring represents another strategy that increases survival through active parental involvement. In some species, adults carry newly hatched tadpoles on their backs, moving them to safe locations where conditions support development. These locations may include small pools of water collected in plants, where competition and predation are reduced. By distributing offspring across multiple sites, the parent increases the likelihood that at least some will survive to adulthood. In rare cases, development occurs entirely within the body of the parent, where internal conditions are adjusted to support growth. This involves significant changes to normal biological processes, including the suppression of digestive activity to prevent harm to developing young. Once development is complete, the young are released, having been protected throughout the most vulnerable stages of life. Although this strategy is uncommon, it demonstrates the extent to which parental care can evolve in response to environmental pressures. These diverse methods of parental care reflect a shift from quantity to protection, where fewer offspring are produced, but survival rates increase. Instead of relying solely on numbers, these species invest energy in safeguarding their young, reducing the impact of predation and environmental instability. This balance between reproduction and protection varies across species, depending on habitat conditions and survival challenges. Beyond parental care, frogs rely on a range of defensive strategies that operate throughout their lives. Camouflage remains one of the most effective methods, allowing frogs to avoid detection by blending into their surroundings. Skin patterns and colors match environmental features, while stillness enhances the effectiveness of concealment. By reducing visibility, frogs decrease the likelihood of attracting attention from predators. When concealment is not sufficient, frogs may rely on physical responses that create hesitation or confusion in predators. Inflation of the body increases apparent size, making the frog more difficult to consume and potentially startling the predator. This behavior can disrupt the attack, providing an opportunity to escape. The effectiveness of this response depends on timing and the reaction of the predator to sudden change in appearance. Chemical defense continues to play a role in preventing predation, with substances released from the skin during contact, creating negative experiences for attackers. These substances may produce irritation, unpleasant taste, or more severe effects depending on the species. Predators that encounter these defenses learn to avoid similar prey in the future, reducing repeated attacks and increasing survival. Movement provides a final line of defense when other strategies fail. Frogs are capable of rapid, explosive jumps that carry them away from immediate danger. This movement relies on stored energy within the hind limbs, released in a single motion that propels the body forward. The speed of this response reduces the chance of capture, particularly when combined with unpredictable direction changes. In aquatic environments, frogs use strong swimming ability to escape threats by diving below the surface. Webbed feet increase propulsion, allowing quick movement through water and access to submerged hiding places. These movements create distance between the frog and the predator, increasing the chance of survival. The ability to move effectively in both water and on land provides flexibility in response to different types of threats. Maintenance of the skin remains essential for supporting these defensive and survival functions. Frogs regularly shed the outer layer of their skin, removing material that may contain damage, parasites, or accumulated substances. This shedding process occurs as the outer layer loosens and separates from the underlying surface, allowing the frog to remove it efficiently. The new layer beneath remains functional and ready to continue supporting respiration and protection. After shedding, Many frogs consume the discarded skin, reclaiming nutrients that would otherwise be lost. This behavior supports efficient use of resources, particularly in environments where food availability may vary. By recycling material from their own bodies, frogs reduce waste and maintain internal balance. As this continues, also removes traces that might attract predators through scent. Hydration is closely linked to skin function, as moisture supports both respiration and protection. Frogs absorb water directly through specialized areas of skin, allowing them to maintain hydration without relying on traditional drinking methods. By remaining in contact with moist surfaces, they draw water into the body, supporting internal processes that depend on fluid balance. The same permeability that allows water absorption also increases vulnerability to harmful substances. Pollutants present in water or soil can enter the body through the skin, affecting internal systems quickly. This sensitivity makes frogs particularly vulnerable to environmental contamination, as even small changes in water quality can disrupt normal function. The condition of the skin therefore reflects both the health of the frog and the state of its environment. Environmental conditions influence how frogs manage moisture and temperature on a daily basis. In dry conditions, frogs may seek shelter in shaded or damp areas where water loss is reduced. Activity often shifts to periods when humidity is higher, such as during nighttime or after rainfall. These behavioral adjustments reduce exposure to conditions that could lead to dehydration. In colder environments, frogs reduce activity to conserve energy when temperatures fall below levels that support normal movement. Some species enter a state of reduced metabolic activity, allowing survival during periods when food is scarce and conditions are unfavorable. This response conserves energy while maintaining essential functions at a minimal level. These combined strategies demonstrate how frogs maintain balance within environments that change over time. Skin function, defensive behavior, parental care, and environmental response all contribute to survival across different conditions. Each adaptation addresses a specific challenge, creating a system that supports persistence across generations. The integration of these systems allows frogs to respond to immediate threats while also preparing for long-term environmental changes. By combining physical, chemical, and behavioral strategies, frogs maintain their position within ecosystems that depend on adaptability and resilience. Their survival reflects the effectiveness of these combined approaches, shaped by long periods of evolutionary pressure. The connection between parental care and survival becomes clearer when considering the number of threats faced during early development. Eggs and tadpoles are exposed to predators such as fish, insects, and other aquatic animals that feed on soft-bodied organisms. By placing eggs in protected locations or carrying developing young, frogs reduce the likelihood of loss during these vulnerable stages. Each strategy represents a direct response to environmental pressure, where increased protection leads to higher survival rates despite producing fewer offspring. The distribution of offspring across multiple locations also reduces risk by preventing a single event from eliminating an entire generation. When tadpoles are transported to separate water sources, the chance of all individuals being affected by predators or environmental change decreases significantly. This method spreads survival potential across different environments, increasing the likelihood that at least some individuals reach maturity. The effectiveness of this strategy depends on the ability of the parent to locate suitable sites that provide adequate resources for development. Defensive behavior continues to support survival beyond early life stages, adapting to the increasing mobility of the frog as it grows. Juvenile frogs begin to rely more heavily on movement and concealment, using small size and access to narrow spaces as protection. As the body develops further, chemical defenses and behavioral responses become more effective, allowing the frog to respond to a wider range of threats. This progression reflects the gradual shift from reliance on protection to reliance on independent survival strategies. Skin maintenance supports these transitions by ensuring that respiratory and defensive functions remain effective throughout development. Newly formed skin must maintain the same permeability required for gas exchange while also supporting hydration and protection. Regular shedding removes damaged or contaminated material, preserving the integrity of the surface and allowing continued interaction with the environment. This renewal process ensures that the skin remains capable of performing multiple roles without degradation over time. Hydration strategies remain active throughout all life stages, supporting both metabolic function and physical performance. Frogs must maintain internal fluid balance to support movement, digestion, and respiration, all of which depend on water within the body. Absorption through the skin provides a continuous method of maintaining this balance, reducing dependence on external water sources for drinking. This method allows frogs to remain active even when standing water is not immediately available, provided that environmental moisture is sufficient. The relationship between skin function and environmental quality reinforces the sensitivity of frogs to changes within their habitat. Exposure to pollutants or chemical imbalances can disrupt normal function, affecting respiration and internal processes. Because these effects occur rapidly, frogs serve as indicators of environmental change, reflecting conditions that may not yet be visible in other species. This sensitivity highlights the importance of maintaining stable environments that support both aquatic and terrestrial stages of life. Together, these extended strategies reinforce the connection between reproduction, defense, and survival. Each system supports the others, creating a network of responses that allow frogs to persist across changing conditions. By protecting offspring, maintaining effective defenses, and preserving skin function, frogs sustain their populations within environments that demand constant adaptation. This balance between vulnerability and resilience defines their continued presence across diverse habitats. Movement in frogs is built around efficiency, power, and rapid response, allowing them to survive in environments where speed and control determine success. The most recognizable form of movement is jumping, which relies on a highly specialized body system designed to generate force quickly and direct it with precision. This capacity allows frogs to escape predators, capture prey, and move between locations with minimal energy loss over distance. The hind limbs of frogs are significantly longer and more muscular than the front limbs, creating a system that stores and releases energy during movement. Muscles within these limbs contract and build tension before a jump, storing elastic energy within tendons and connective tissue. When released, this stored energy converts into forward motion, launching the frog through the air in a single powerful movement. As this continues, allows frogs to achieve distances many times the length of their own bodies. The skeletal system supports this movement through a combination of strength and flexibility. Bones within the hind limbs are elongated and reinforced, allowing them to withstand the forces generated during takeoff and landing. The pelvis is designed to transfer energy efficiently from the muscles into forward motion, acting as a central point of force distribution. This design ensures that energy is directed toward movement rather than lost through unnecessary motion or instability. The spine of a frog is shorter and more rigid than that of many other animals, providing stability during jumping. This rigidity allows force generated by the hind limbs to move through the body without dissipation, increasing the effectiveness of each jump. At the same time, joints within the limbs allow controlled bending and extension, ensuring that the frog can adjust its movement based on terrain and distance. This balance between rigidity and flexibility creates a system that supports both power and control. Landing after a jump requires the body to absorb significant impact without damage. Frogs achieve this through joint alignment and muscle control that distribute force across the body. Limbs extend forward to make initial contact with the ground, allowing muscles to absorb shock before the rest of the body follows. This reduces stress on individual bones and prevents injury during repeated movement. The ability to land safely allows frogs to jump frequently without reducing performance over time. The efficiency of jumping also depends on timing and coordination. Frogs must align their bodies correctly before launching, ensuring that movement is directed toward a safe landing point. This requires rapid processing of visual and spatial information, allowing adjustment in direction and force based on the environment. The coordination between sensory input and muscular response creates movement that appears effortless but depends on precise internal control. In some environments, particularly within forest canopies, frogs extend their movement capabilities beyond simple jumping by using gliding behavior. Certain species possess expanded webbing between their toes and loose skin along their sides, creating surfaces that interact with air during descent. When these frogs leap from elevated positions, they spread their limbs, increasing surface area and reducing the speed of descent. This gliding does not involve powered flight, but allows controlled movement through the air, directing the body toward a chosen landing point. By adjusting limb position, the frog can influence direction and distance, allowing movement between branches without descending to the ground. This capacity reduces exposure to ground-based predators and provides access to food sources located within the canopy. Gliding also reduces the energy cost associated with climbing back to elevated positions. Instead of descending and climbing again, frogs can move laterally between trees, maintaining position within a preferred environment. This efficiency supports survival in habitats where vertical movement would otherwise require significant energy expenditure. The development of gliding systems reflects adaptation to environments where three-dimensional movement provides an advantage. Movement in water requires a different set of adaptations that support propulsion through a dense medium. Frogs use their hind limbs in a coordinated motion that pushes against the water, generating forward movement. Webbed feet increase the surface area of each stroke, allowing the frog to displace more water and create stronger propulsion. This adaptation improves efficiency, enabling frogs to move quickly while using less energy. During swimming, Frogs extend their legs fully and then draw them back toward the body in a repeated cycle. This motion creates a pattern similar to that used by human swimmers, where propulsion occurs during extension and recovery occurs during retraction. The coordination of both hind limbs ensures balanced movement, preventing rotation and maintaining a straight path through the water. This control is essential for both hunting and escape. Swimming ability allows frogs to access prey that exists within aquatic environments, including insects and small organisms that live below the surface. It also provides a means of escape from predators that approach from land, allowing frogs to enter water quickly and move beyond immediate danger. Once submerged, frogs can remain hidden while relying on skin-based respiration to sustain oxygen levels. Some species are highly adapted to aquatic life, spending most of their time in water rather than on land. These frogs often have stronger webbing and more streamlined bodies, reducing resistance and increasing speed. Their movement becomes more fluid, allowing efficient navigation through water with minimal disruption. This adaptation reflects environments where aquatic conditions dominate and provide the primary source of food and safety. Climbing represents another form of movement that allows frogs to access environments beyond ground level. Tree-dwelling species develop specialized toe pads that enable them to adhere to surfaces that would otherwise be difficult to grip. These pads contain microscopic systems that interact with surfaces at a fine level, creating friction and allowing the frog to maintain contact even on smooth or wet surfaces. Moisture plays a role in this adhesion, as the surface of the toe pad remains slightly wet, increasing contact with the surface and improving grip. This allows frogs to climb vertical surfaces, move along leaves, and remain attached even during rain or movement. The ability to climb expands available habitat, providing access to food sources and shelter that are not accessible from the ground. Climbing also offers protection from predators that are limited to ground movement. By moving into elevated positions, frogs reduce the number of potential threats they face, increasing survival within environments where ground-based predators are common. This vertical movement creates separation between predator and prey, allowing frogs to remain active in areas that provide both safety and resources. The combination of jumping, swimming, and climbing allows frogs to move effectively across multiple environments, responding to changes in terrain and conditions with flexibility. Each form of movement is supported by specific adaptations that enhance performance within that context. These adaptations work together, allowing frogs to transition between environments without losing efficiency. Energy use remains a critical factor in movement, as frogs must balance the need for rapid response with the need to conserve resources. Jumping provides high-speed movement over short distances, while swimming allows sustained movement within water. Climbing offers access to new areas without requiring large energy expenditure for repeated jumping. By using the appropriate form of movement for each situation, frogs maintain energy balance while meeting survival demands. These movement systems are closely linked to other aspects of frog biology, including feeding and defense. The ability to reach prey quickly depends on effective movement, while escape from predators relies on speed and direction control. Movement also supports reproduction, allowing frogs to reach breeding sites and locate suitable environments for egg laying. Each function depends on the ability to move efficiently within a changing environment. Environmental conditions influence how and when frogs move, with factors such as temperature and moisture affecting performance. Warmer conditions increase muscle activity, allowing faster and more powerful movement, while cooler conditions reduce speed and responsiveness. Moisture levels affect surface conditions, influencing traction during jumping and climbing. Frogs adjust their behavior based on these factors, choosing times and locations that support effective movement. The integration of movement systems reflects the demands of living between water and land, where different environments require different solutions. Frogs must transition between these environments without losing the ability to respond quickly to threats or opportunities. By developing specialized forms of movement, frogs maintain flexibility and control across varied conditions. These adaptations demonstrate how system and function combine to support survival. Each feature of the body contributes to movement, from muscle and bone to skin and sensory systems. The result is a coordinated system that allows frogs to navigate complex environments with speed, precision, and efficiency. Frogs occupy a central position within ecosystems, linking multiple layers of the food web through their roles as both predators and prey. Their presence influences the balance of populations across different species, affecting how energy moves through the environment. By interacting with organisms above and below them in the food chain, frogs contribute to the stability of ecosystems that depend on controlled relationships between species. As predators, frogs consume large numbers of insects and other small invertebrates, reducing populations that might otherwise grow rapidly. This feeding behavior plays a direct role in controlling species such as mosquitoes, flies, and other insects that reproduce quickly under favorable conditions. By limiting these populations, frogs help maintain balance within environments where unchecked growth could disrupt plant life and increase competition among species. The impact of this feeding extends beyond simple population control, influencing the spread of disease within ecosystems. Insects such as mosquitoes can carry pathogens that affect both animals and humans, and reducing their numbers lowers the risk associated with their presence. Frogs act as a natural form of regulation, contributing to the health of environments by limiting the abundance of organisms that serve as disease carriers. Frogs do not rely on a single type of prey, allowing them to adapt their diet based on availability within their environment. This flexibility ensures that frogs can continue feeding even when specific insect populations fluctuate. By consuming a variety of prey, frogs reduce pressure on any single species while maintaining a steady intake of energy. This adaptability supports survival in environments where conditions change over time. Larger frog species expand their role as predators by consuming small vertebrates in addition to insects. These may include small fish, other amphibians, birds, or mammals that fall within the size range that the frog can capture and swallow. This broader diet places larger frogs higher within the food chain, increasing their influence on surrounding populations. The presence of these predators affects the behavior and distribution of other species within the ecosystem. At the same time, frogs serve as a vital food source for a wide range of predators, connecting them to higher levels of the food chain. Birds, snakes, fish, turtles, and mammals rely on frogs as a source of nutrition, particularly in environments where other prey may be less available. This role as prey ensures that energy captured by frogs through feeding is passed upward to support larger animals. The relationship between frogs and their predators creates a dynamic balance where populations influence each other continuously. When frog numbers are high, predators benefit from increased food availability, supporting growth and reproduction. When frog numbers decline, predators may experience reduced food supply, leading to changes in behavior or population size. This interaction demonstrates how frogs contribute to the stability of ecosystems through their position within the food web. The role of frogs extends into nutrient cycling, where their feeding and waste contribute to the movement of materials through the environment. When frogs consume prey, they convert nutrients into body mass that becomes available to other organisms when they are eaten or when they die. Waste produced by frogs returns nutrients to soil and water, supporting plant growth and the development of microorganisms that form the base of the food chain. During the tadpole stage, frogs contribute directly to the condition of aquatic environments. Tadpoles feed on algae and organic material within the water, reducing excess growth that can limit oxygen availability. By consuming these materials, tadpoles help maintain water clarity and support balanced conditions within ponds and streams. This feeding behavior prevents the accumulation of substances that could disrupt aquatic ecosystems. The activity of tadpoles also influences the distribution of nutrients within water systems. As they feed and move, they stir sediments and redistribute materials, affecting how nutrients are accessed by other organisms. This movement supports the growth of plants and microorganisms that depend on available nutrients, contributing to overall ecosystem function. The presence of tadpoles therefore supports both water quality and biological activity. As frogs transition from aquatic to terrestrial life, they carry nutrients between these environments, linking systems that would otherwise remain separate. Nutrients absorbed during the tadpole stage become part of the adult frog's body, which then interacts with terrestrial ecosystems through feeding and movement. This transfer connects aquatic and land-based systems, allowing energy and materials to move between them. The importance of frogs within ecosystems is further reflected in their sensitivity to environmental change. Because their skin allows substances to enter the body directly, frogs respond quickly to changes in water quality, pollution, and habitat conditions. This sensitivity makes them effective indicators of ecosystem health, as changes in frog populations often occur before other signs become visible. When frog populations decline, it often signals problems within the environment that may affect multiple species. Pollution, habitat loss, and climate changes can all impact frogs directly, leading to reductions in numbers that reflect broader issues within the ecosystem. By observing these changes, scientists gain insight into the condition of the environment and can identify areas where intervention may be needed. The concept of frogs as bioindicators highlights their role beyond direct interaction with other species. They provide information about the state of ecosystems, acting as early warning systems for environmental disruption. Their presence, absence, or change in behavior can reveal conditions that might otherwise go unnoticed until more severe effects occur. The decline of frog populations in certain areas has drawn attention to environmental issues that affect both wildlife and human communities. Contaminants in water, changes in temperature, and the spread of disease can all contribute to reductions in frog numbers. These changes often indicate shifts in environmental balance that require attention to prevent further impact on ecosystems. Despite these challenges, frogs continue to play a critical role in maintaining ecological stability. Their interactions with other species support the flow of energy through food webs, while their influence on nutrient cycling contributes to the health of both aquatic and terrestrial systems. The presence of frogs reflects a functioning ecosystem where relationships between species remain balanced. Understanding the role of frogs within ecosystems provides insight into how different components of the environment interact. Each function performed by frogs contributes to a larger system where balance depends on the presence of multiple species fulfilling specific roles. The removal or decline of frogs disrupts these relationships, demonstrating how interconnected these systems are. The continued survival of frog populations depends on maintaining the conditions that support their life cycle, including access to clean water and suitable habitat. Protecting these conditions supports not only frogs, but also the broader ecosystems in which they exist. By maintaining environments that support frogs, the stability of entire ecosystems can be preserved. Through their roles as predators, prey, nutrient carriers, and indicators, frogs contribute to the system and function of ecosystems in ways that extend far beyond their size. Their influence is felt across multiple levels of the food chain, linking species and environments through continuous interaction. This interconnected role highlights the importance of frogs within natural systems that depend on balance and adaptability. Environmental pressure shapes the survival of frogs and toads through direct effects on the conditions required for their life cycle. These animals depend on both water and land, meaning that changes in either environment can disrupt reproduction, development, and adult survival. Because their skin allows substances to pass directly into the body, frogs respond quickly to shifts in water quality, temperature, and chemical composition. This sensitivity makes them highly responsive to environmental change, but it also makes them vulnerable when conditions move outside the range required for stable function. Habitat loss represents one of the most immediate causes of decline within frog populations. Wetlands are drained to create land for agriculture, removing shallow water bodies that support egg development and tadpole growth. Forests are cleared, reducing humidity and eliminating shaded environments that protect frogs from dehydration. Rivers and streams are redirected or altered, disrupting water flow and removing stable breeding sites. These changes reduce the number of locations where frogs can reproduce successfully, limiting the continuation of populations over time. The loss of breeding sites has a direct effect on reproductive success. Frogs often return to the same water sources where they were born, relying on environmental conditions that previously supported development. When these locations are removed, frogs must search for alternatives that may not provide the same balance of temperature, oxygen, and protection. This uncertainty reduces the likelihood that eggs will survive to become adults, leading to gradual population decline. Pollution introduces additional challenges by altering the chemical balance of water and soil. Substances such as pesticides, heavy metals, and industrial waste enter waterways and accumulate within the environment. Because frog skin is permeable, these substances pass directly into the body, affecting internal systems without filtration. This exposure interferes with respiration by disrupting oxygen exchange, affects circulation by altering blood chemistry, and influences development by interfering with hormonal processes. The effects of pollution are particularly visible during early development. Embryos and tadpoles are highly sensitive to changes in water chemistry, and exposure to contaminants can slow growth, cause deformities, or prevent hatching. Tadpoles that survive may develop abnormalities that affect movement or feeding, reducing their chances of reaching adulthood. These effects accumulate over time, reducing population size and weakening long-term stability. Climate change alters environmental conditions in ways that affect both water availability and temperature patterns. Changes in rainfall influence the formation of temporary pools used for breeding, with extended dry periods reducing the number of suitable locations for egg deposition. In regions where rainfall becomes unpredictable, frogs may lay eggs in environments that dry out before development is complete, leading to loss of entire groups of offspring. Temperature changes affect metabolic processes that control activity, feeding, and development. Warmer conditions can increase metabolic rate, requiring more energy and increasing stress when food availability does not match demand. In colder environments, shifts in seasonal timing can disrupt dormancy cycles, affecting survival during periods when conditions are unfavorable. These changes alter the balance between energy use and availability, influencing the ability of frogs to maintain stable populations. One of the most severe threats to frogs is the spread of a fungal disease that affects the skin, disrupting essential functions required for survival. This disease interferes with the ability to regulate oxygen exchange and fluid balance, processes that occur through the skin in amphibians. As the infection spreads, the frog becomes unable to maintain internal stability, leading to a breakdown of physiological systems. The spread of this disease has led to rapid declines in frog populations across multiple regions. Because it can move through water and direct contact, it spreads quickly within dense populations. In some cases, species have disappeared within a short period after the disease appears, demonstrating how quickly populations can collapse when critical systems are disrupted. The impact of this disease highlights the dependence of frogs on healthy skin function and stable environmental conditions. The loss of species has wider effects on ecosystems, as frogs play a central role within the food web. When frog populations decline, insects that they once controlled may increase in number, affecting plant life and altering competition within the ecosystem. Predators that rely on frogs as a food source may experience reduced availability of prey, leading to changes in behavior or population size. These shifts demonstrate how the decline of a single group can influence multiple levels of the ecosystem. Human intervention has also introduced species into environments where they do not naturally occur, creating additional imbalance. In an attempt to control agricultural pests, certain frog species have been transported to new regions without natural predators. These species can reproduce rapidly and spread across large areas, consuming resources needed by native frogs and altering the balance of the ecosystem. In some cases, introduced species carry toxins that affect predators unfamiliar with their presence. When native predators attempt to consume these frogs, they may experience harmful effects, reducing their ability to control populations. This allows the introduced species to expand further, increasing competition and reducing the survival of native species. The introduction of such species demonstrates how actions intended to solve one problem can create new challenges within ecosystems. Despite these pressures, frogs have contributed to scientific understanding through their use in research. Their sensitivity to environmental conditions makes them useful for studying the effects of changes in water quality, temperature, and chemical exposure. By observing how frogs respond to these conditions, researchers gain insight into biological processes that apply across species. This connection between frog biology and broader scientific understanding highlights their importance beyond their ecological role. Frogs have also been used in medical research, where their biological responses provided information about reproductive systems and development. Their predictable reactions to certain conditions allowed early researchers to observe changes that informed understanding of human biology. These studies contributed to advancements in knowledge that extend beyond amphibians, demonstrating the value of frogs in scientific exploration. Beyond science, frogs hold cultural significance in many parts of the world, reflecting their connection to natural cycles and environmental change. In various traditions, frogs are associated with rainfall as their activity increases during periods of moisture. Their presence signals the return of water to dry landscapes, linking them to cycles of growth and renewal within the environment. Frogs also appear in stories and symbols that represent transformation, reflecting their life cycle from aquatic to terrestrial forms. This visible change provides a natural example of development and transition, making frogs a common symbol in narratives that explore change over time. These associations reflect careful observation of natural processes and their integration into cultural understanding. In some regions, frogs are connected to ideas of fertility and renewal due to their seasonal appearance following periods of drought or cold. Their return signals the restoration of conditions that support life, reinforcing their role as indicators of environmental change. These cultural connections highlight the relationship between human observation and the behavior of animals within ecosystems. The continued presence of frogs within ecosystems depends on maintaining the conditions required for their survival. Clean water, stable habitats, and balanced environmental conditions support reproduction and development, allowing populations to persist over time. Efforts to protect these conditions contribute to the stability of ecosystems that depend on the interaction of multiple species. Understanding the factors that influence frog populations provides insight into the broader functioning of ecosystems. Each pressure, from habitat loss to disease, represents a disruption that can affect multiple levels of interaction. By addressing these pressures, it becomes possible to support not only frogs, but also the systems in which they exist. Frogs and toads remain an essential part of environments that depend on balance between water and land. Their roles as predators, prey, and indicators connect multiple systems, influencing the movement of energy and nutrients through the ecosystem. Their continued survival reflects the stability of the environments they inhabit and the effectiveness of efforts to maintain those conditions. The interaction between frogs and their environment becomes even more apparent when examining how small changes can produce large-scale effects across entire ecosystems. Because frogs occupy a middle position within the food web, their decline removes a key link between lower and higher levels of biological interaction. When insect populations increase due to reduced predation, plant systems may experience additional stress, affecting growth patterns and altering the availability of food for other species. These changes can spread outward, influencing organisms that are not directly connected to frogs, but depend on the same resources. The sensitivity of frogs to environmental conditions makes them one of the earliest indicators of imbalance within natural systems. Their skin absorbs substances directly, meaning that changes in water quality or soil composition affect them almost immediately. This rapid response provides an early signal that conditions are shifting in ways that may eventually affect other species. Observing frog populations allows researchers to detect these changes before they become visible in larger or less sensitive organisms. Water systems in particular reflect the presence or absence of frogs in noticeable ways. When tadpoles are abundant, they help regulate algae growth and maintain clarity within ponds and streams. Their feeding activity prevents excessive accumulation of organic material, supporting oxygen levels that are necessary for other aquatic life. When tadpole populations decline, these processes slow, allowing algae and debris to build up and reduce water quality. This change can affect fish, insects, and microorganisms that depend on balanced conditions. The movement of frogs between water and land also contributes to the transfer of nutrients across environments. During the aquatic stage, nutrients are absorbed and stored within the developing body. When frogs move onto land, these nutrients are carried into terrestrial systems, where they become part of the food web through predation and natural processes. This transfer connects environments that might otherwise remain separate, supporting the flow of energy through different parts of the ecosystem. Predators that depend on frogs must adjust when populations decline, often shifting to alternative prey. This shift can place additional pressure on other species, increasing competition and altering population balance. In some cases, predators may not find suitable replacements, leading to declines that further affect the system of the ecosystem. These cascading effects demonstrate how the removal of frogs can influence multiple levels of biological interaction. Human influence continues to shape these outcomes through both direct and indirect actions. Land development, pollution, and species introduction alter environments in ways that affect frog survival. Even when actions are taken with specific goals, such as pest control, the results can extend beyond the intended outcome. Introducing a species to reduce insect populations may create new imbalances if that species competes with or displaces native frogs. The long-term effects of these changes often become visible only after several cycles of reproduction and decline. Because frogs reproduce in large numbers but rely on specific conditions for survival, disruptions may not produce immediate disappearance. Instead, populations may gradually decrease as fewer individuals reach maturity each year. This slow decline can go unnoticed until numbers fall below a level that supports recovery. Scientific monitoring of frog populations provides valuable information about these trends. By tracking changes in distribution, abundance, and behavior, researchers can identify patterns that indicate environmental stress. These observations support efforts to understand how ecosystems respond to change and how those changes can be managed. Frogs serve as a measurable link between environmental conditions and biological response. Efforts to support frog populations often focus on restoring the conditions required for their life cycle. Protecting wetlands ensures that breeding sites remain available, while reducing pollution improves water quality and supports development. Maintaining vegetation preserves humidity and provides shelter, reducing exposure to environmental stress. These actions address the underlying causes of decline rather than treating the symptoms. The recovery of frog populations depends on the ability of environments to return to conditions that support reproduction and growth. When suitable habitats are restored, frogs can re-establish populations through natural processes. However, recovery may take time, particularly in areas where multiple pressures have affected survival. Continued protection is required to ensure that restored environments remain stable. The presence of frogs within an ecosystem reflects a balance between environmental conditions and biological processes. When this balance is maintained, frogs continue to perform their roles within the food web, supporting the movement of energy and nutrients. Their activity contributes to the stability of both aquatic and terrestrial systems, reinforcing the interconnected nature of these environments. As environmental pressures continue to influence natural systems, the role of frogs becomes increasingly important in understanding how ecosystems respond to change. Their sensitivity provides insight into conditions that affect a wide range of species, making them a key part of efforts to monitor and protect the environment. By observing frogs, it becomes possible to recognize patterns that indicate both stability and disruption. The continued study of frogs supports a deeper understanding of how life adapts to changing conditions. Their ability to survive across diverse environments demonstrates resilience shaped by long periods of adaptation. At the same time, their vulnerability highlights the limits of that resilience when environmental change occurs too rapidly or extensively. This balance between strength and sensitivity defines their role within the natural world. Through their interactions with the environment, frogs and toads illustrate the importance of maintaining conditions that support life across multiple systems. Their dependence on both water and land connects these environments in ways that influence the entire ecosystem. Protecting these connections ensures that the processes supporting survival remain intact, allowing frogs and the systems they inhabit to continue functioning together. Frogs play a deeper role in regulating ecosystems than is immediately visible, forming connections that extend far beyond simple predator and prey relationships. When insect populations begin to rise due to favorable conditions, frogs respond by increasing feeding activity, reducing the number of insects that survive to reproduce. Over time, this helps stabilize populations that might otherwise grow rapidly and overwhelm plant systems. Without this form of control, insects can consume large amounts of vegetation, altering growth patterns and reducing the availability of food for other species. This influence extends outward, creating a chain reaction where the absence of frogs allows imbalance to spread through multiple layers of the ecosystem. As insect numbers increase unchecked, plant systems experience stress, which then affects herbivores and the predators that depend on them. This interconnected response shows how frogs contribute to maintaining equilibrium across environments that depend on balanced relationships. Frogs influence these systems with a level of precision that is often overlooked. Their feeding behavior is not random. It follows patterns that align with the activity cycles of the insects they consume. Many insects become more active at specific times of day or under particular environmental conditions. Frogs respond to these patterns by adjusting when and where they hunt. This creates a layered form of population control, where pressure is applied at multiple points rather than all at once. Over time, this prevents any single insect population from dominating the ecosystem. Instead of dramatic swings, there is a steady balance that supports plant life and the animals that depend on it. This regulation extends across seasons. In warmer months, insect populations tend to increase rapidly. Frogs respond with higher feeding activity, helping to limit the impact on vegetation. During cooler periods, when insect activity decreases, frogs also reduce their activity, conserving energy while maintaining the balance. This seasonal rhythm creates a stabilizing effect that supports long-term ecological health. Without this balance, ecosystems would experience more extreme fluctuations, making it difficult for many species to survive. The impact of this balance becomes more visible when frogs are removed from an environment. In areas where frog populations decline, insect numbers can increase sharply. This rise places additional pressure on plants, which may struggle to recover from sustained feeding. As plant health declines, herbivores lose a stable food source, and predators that rely on those herbivores are also affected. This chain reaction shows how frogs contribute to the structure of ecosystems in ways that extend far beyond their size. They are not simply part of the system, they help regulate it. Within aquatic environments, tadpoles play an equally important role, but their influence operates differently. Rather than controlling insect populations directly, tadpoles help maintain the internal balance of the water itself. By feeding on algae, they prevent excessive growth that would otherwise block light and reduce oxygen levels. This allows plants and microorganisms to continue functioning, supporting the broader ecosystem. Their movement through the water contributes to this balance as well. As tadpoles swim, they disturb sediment at the bottom of ponds and pools. This releases nutrients that become available to other organisms, supporting growth and maintaining a dynamic system. Without this movement, nutrients may remain trapped, limiting the productivity of the environment. This constant interaction between feeding and motion helps sustain conditions that support multiple forms of life. In smaller water systems, the role of tadpoles becomes even more critical. Temporary pools and shallow ponds can change rapidly. A small increase in organic material or a slight drop in oxygen levels can affect every organism within the system. Tadpoles help regulate these changes, keeping conditions within a range that supports survival. When tadpole populations are strong, these systems tend to remain stable. When they decline, the effects can be immediate and widespread. Tadpoles also influence how energy moves through aquatic systems. By consuming organic material and algae, they convert these resources into forms that can be used by other animals as they grow. When they eventually develop into adult frogs, this energy is transferred into terrestrial environments. This movement connects water-based systems with land-based systems, allowing nutrients and energy to flow between them. In this way, tadpoles serve as a link between environments that might otherwise remain separate. These processes highlight the importance of frogs at multiple stages of their life cycle. As adults, they regulate insect populations and help maintain balance across land-based systems. As tadpoles, they support water quality and influence the internal dynamics of aquatic environments. Together, these roles create a continuous influence that spans different habitats and stages of development. This dual impact makes frogs an important part of both aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems, reinforcing their role in maintaining environmental stability. The presence of tadpoles within aquatic environments supports water quality in ways that are essential for other organisms. As tadpoles feed on algae and organic material, they prevent excessive buildup that would otherwise reduce oxygen levels in the water. This activity maintains clarity and supports conditions where fish and microorganisms can survive and function effectively. Their movement through the water also stirs sediment, redistributing nutrients and improving access for other forms of life. This continuous interaction between feeding and movement supports the stability of aquatic ecosystems that depend on balanced oxygen levels and nutrient distribution. When tadpole populations decline, these processes slow, leading to reduced water quality and increased stress on aquatic systems. Oxygen levels may drop, and excess organic material can accumulate, creating conditions that limit survival for other species and disrupt the balance of the environment. Environmental threats continue to expand in impact as conditions shift over time, placing increasing pressure on frog populations across multiple regions. Habitat loss does not only remove physical space, but also breaks connections between environments that frogs depend on to complete their life cycle. Wetlands may be drained, forests cleared, and water systems altered, removing the stable breeding sites required for development. When these locations disappear, frogs must travel further to locate suitable environments, increasing exposure to predators and reducing reproductive success. This additional movement requires energy and increases risk, making survival more difficult even before reproduction occurs. Pollution compounds these effects by weakening individuals, making them less capable of surviving in already reduced habitats. Chemicals entering water systems pass directly through the skin, disrupting respiration and internal balance in ways that can be immediate and severe. Over time, even low levels of contamination can accumulate within the body, creating long-term effects that reduce overall resilience and increase vulnerability to other stressors. Climate-driven changes in rainfall patterns further disrupt the timing and availability of breeding environments, introducing uncertainty into reproduction cycles. Temporary pools that frogs rely on may form later than expected or disappear too quickly, preventing eggs from developing fully. This leads to repeated reproductive failure, where frogs continue to attempt breeding but produce fewer surviving offspring. Over time, this reduces population size in a gradual but consistent way that can be difficult to reverse. Temperature changes also affect metabolic processes, altering activity levels and energy use in ways that can create additional stress. Warmer conditions may increase energy demand without increasing food availability, while colder shifts can disrupt dormancy cycles that protect frogs during harsh seasons. These combined pressures reduce stability and make recovery dependent on long periods of favorable conditions. Some of the most severe challenges facing frogs come from disease, particularly infections that affect the skin and interfere with essential biological functions. A widespread fungal disease has demonstrated how quickly populations can decline when critical systems are disrupted. This infection spreads through water and direct contact, attaching to the skin and interfering with the exchange of oxygen and fluids that frogs depend on for survival. As the infection develops, it thickens the skin and reduces its ability to absorb oxygen and regulate moisture. This creates a cascade of internal failure, where the frog can no longer maintain stable conditions within the body. Because frogs rely on their skin for both respiration and hydration, even small disruptions can have large effects on survival. In dense populations, the disease spreads rapidly, affecting multiple species within the same environment. In some regions, entire populations have disappeared within a short period, demonstrating how vulnerable these systems are when disrupted. Recovery is often slow or incomplete, as the pathogen can persist in the environment and reinfect new generations, creating long-term pressure on already reduced populations. Human influence continues to shape these outcomes through both intentional and unintended actions, often altering ecosystems in ways that extend far beyond the original goal. The introduction of species for pest control has, in some cases, resulted in populations that expand beyond control, competing with native frogs for resources. The cane toad provides a clear example, where introduction into new environments led to rapid population growth without natural predators. These toads consume large amounts of food and reproduce quickly, reducing resources available to native species. Their toxic skin also affects predators unfamiliar with their defenses, often causing harm or death when consumed. As predator populations decline, natural regulation weakens, allowing the invasive species to expand further. Over time, this creates a lasting imbalance where native species struggle to compete, and ecosystems shift in ways that are difficult to reverse. These shifts can alter feeding patterns, breeding success, and habitat use across multiple species. In response to these pressures, frogs have contributed significantly to scientific understanding due to their sensitivity to environmental change. Because their skin absorbs substances directly, frogs respond quickly to shifts in water quality, temperature, and chemical exposure. This makes them valuable indicators of environmental health, as changes in their populations often occur before effects are visible in other species. Researchers study these responses to understand how biological systems react to stress, providing insight that extends beyond amphibians. Frogs have also been used in research related to development and reproduction, where their predictable biological processes offer measurable results. This connection between frogs and scientific study highlights their importance in understanding both natural systems and broader biological function. Survival strategies within extreme environments further demonstrate the adaptability of frogs when faced with conditions that would limit many other animals. In colder regions, certain species have developed the ability to survive freezing conditions by producing compounds that protect internal systems. Ice may form within parts of the body, while vital organs remain protected from damage. During this period, the heart may slow or temporarily stop, and breathing ceases, placing the frog into a suspended state where energy use is minimal. Sugars and protective compounds prevent damage at the cellular level as ice forms. When temperatures rise, the ice melts gradually, and normal function resumes without lasting harm. This precise control allows frogs to survive seasonal freezing that would otherwise be fatal. In dry environments, frogs face the opposite challenge, where water conservation becomes the primary concern. Some species burrow into soil or sheltered spaces where moisture levels remain higher than at the surface. Within these environments, they enter a dormant state that reduces activity and conserves resources over extended periods. Certain frogs store water within their bodies, using it gradually to maintain essential functions during drought conditions. This stored water acts as a reserve that supports survival until rainfall returns. When moisture levels increase, frogs emerge and resume feeding and reproduction, continuing their life cycle. This ability to shift between activity and dormancy allows frogs to persist in environments where water availability changes dramatically over time. Some species have also developed strategies that allow them to survive in environments where water contains higher levels of salt. While most amphibians are sensitive to salinity, certain frogs regulate internal salt balance by controlling the movement of water and ions across the skin. This ability allows them to survive in brackish conditions where other amphibians cannot, expanding their habitat range and reducing competition. These specialized adaptations demonstrate how small physiological changes can create new opportunities for survival within challenging environments. If frog populations were to decline significantly or disappear entirely, the effects would extend far beyond their immediate environment. Insect populations would increase rapidly, placing additional pressure on plant systems and altering the availability of food for other species. Predators that rely on frogs would lose a key food source, forcing them to shift to alternative prey or decline in number. This would create further imbalance, affecting multiple levels of the food web. Nutrient cycling would also be disrupted, as fewer frogs would mean less movement of energy between aquatic and terrestrial systems. These cascading effects demonstrate how the loss of a single group can influence entire ecosystems over time. In complex environments, these changes can compound, leading to long-term instability that affects biodiversity and ecosystem function. Culturally, frogs have remained closely tied to patterns of environmental change observed by human communities, reflecting their connection to natural cycles. Their appearance during periods of rainfall has linked them to renewal and growth, while their transformation from tadpole to adult has been used as a representation of change and development. These observations have shaped how frogs are viewed across different societies, reinforcing their connection to cycles that influence both ecosystems and human life. This cultural perspective reflects long-term observation of natural processes and the role frogs play within them. As all of these systems come together, frogs and toads illustrate a balance between vulnerability and resilience that defines their continued survival. Their ability to adapt to changing conditions has allowed them to persist across long periods of environmental change, yet their sensitivity makes them responsive to disruption. Movement, respiration, reproduction, and environmental interaction all combine to form a system that depends on stability within both water and land environments. When these conditions remain balanced, frogs continue to support the flow of energy and nutrients through ecosystems. Their presence reflects the health of the environments they inhabit and the connections that sustain them. Through this balance, frogs continue to link aquatic and terrestrial systems, moving between them as conditions require and maintaining connections that support broader ecological function. Their role within these systems extends beyond their size, influencing relationships that affect multiple levels of the environment. Protecting the conditions that support frog populations helps preserve the stability of ecosystems that depend on these interactions. In this way, frogs and toads remain a key part of the natural world, reflecting both the strength and fragility of the systems in which they exist. Environmental pressures rarely act in isolation, and for frogs, the overlap between these pressures is often where the greatest impact occurs. Habitat loss does not simply remove space, it alters how frogs move through the landscape. Breeding ponds, feeding grounds, and shelter areas may still exist, but if they are no longer connected, frogs must travel further between them. This increased movement exposes them to predators, heat, dehydration, and human activity such as roads or development. Over time, this constant exposure reduces survival rates, even in environments that appear suitable at first glance. Fragmentation also changes behavior. Frogs that once moved freely may become more cautious, limiting their activity to smaller areas. While this may reduce immediate risk, it also reduces access to food and breeding sites. Over multiple seasons, this restricted movement lowers reproductive success and reduces population growth. These effects are not always sudden. Instead, they build gradually, creating a slow decline that can go unnoticed until populations are already significantly reduced. Pollution introduces a different type of pressure, one that affects frogs internally rather than externally. Because frogs absorb substances directly through their skin, chemicals in water and soil enter the body quickly. These substances can interfere with respiration, hydration, and internal chemical balance. Some disrupt hormones, affecting development and reproduction. Others weaken the immune system, making frogs more vulnerable to disease. Even when contamination levels are low, repeated exposure can produce long-term effects that reduce overall resilience. The interaction between pollution and disease is especially important. When frogs are exposed to pollutants, their ability to resist infection decreases. Pathogens that might otherwise have limited impact can become far more dangerous. Fungal infections affecting the skin are particularly severe because they interfere with the very system frogs rely on to breathe and maintain moisture. Once the skin is compromised, the body struggles to maintain balance, and recovery becomes difficult. Disease spreads more rapidly when populations are already under stress. Frogs often gather in large numbers during breeding, which creates ideal conditions for transmission. Water carries infectious particles, allowing disease to move quickly through entire groups. In environments where frogs are weakened by pollution or habitat loss, this spread can lead to rapid population decline. Recovery is further complicated by the ability of pathogens to remain in the environment, continuing to infect new individuals over time. Climate change adds another layer of complexity by altering the conditions frogs depend on. Rainfall patterns shift, changing when and where breeding pools form. Temperature fluctuations affect activity levels, feeding patterns, and metabolic demand. When environmental signals become less predictable, frogs may breed at the wrong time or in unsuitable conditions. Eggs may fail to develop, or tadpoles may not survive long enough to reach maturity. These repeated failures reduce population size gradually, but consistently. Invasive species amplify these challenges by altering competition and predator relationships. The introduction of species, such as the cane toad, changes how resources are distributed within the ecosystem. These toads consume large amounts of food and reproduce quickly, reducing what is available for native frogs. At the same time, their toxicity affects predators that attempt to consume them, reducing natural population control. This creates an imbalance where invasive species expand while native populations decline. The combined effect of these pressures is not simply additive, it is compounding. Habitat loss increases exposure, pollution weakens resistance, disease spreads more easily, climate change disrupts timing, invasive species alter competition. Together, these factors create a system where frogs face multiple challenges at once, each reinforcing the others. Understanding this interaction is key to understanding why frog populations can decline rapidly once these pressures begin to overlap. Survival strategies within extreme environments reveal an additional layer of complexity in how frogs respond to changing conditions. In colder regions, some species do more than simply endure freezing temperatures. They prepare for it in advance, gradually adjusting internal chemistry as temperatures begin to fall. Protective compounds accumulate within the body, helping to prevent cellular damage as ice begins to form. This process is not instantaneous. It develops over time, allowing frogs to enter a state where essential functions slow dramatically without causing permanent harm. When temperatures rise, recovery also follows a gradual pattern, restoring normal function in a controlled way that preserves internal balance. In environments where water is scarce, frogs rely on a different set of strategies that focus on conservation and timing. Burrowing beneath the surface allows them to access moisture that remains trapped below ground. Within these spaces, they reduce activity to a minimum, lowering energy use and limiting water loss. Some species create protective layers around the body that further reduce evaporation, allowing them to survive extended periods without direct access to water. When rainfall returns, these frogs emerge and resume activity quickly, taking advantage of short windows where conditions are favorable for feeding and reproduction. These survival strategies highlight how frogs depend on precise timing rather than constant stability. They do not require perfect conditions at all times, but they do require predictable patterns. When those patterns break down, even highly adapted species can struggle. A delay in rainfall, an unexpected temperature shift, or the loss of a breeding site can disrupt the timing that these strategies depend on. Over time, repeated disruptions reduce the effectiveness of these adaptations, making survival more difficult. If frog populations decline beyond a certain point, ecosystems begin to shift in more noticeable ways. Insect populations may increase rapidly, placing additional strain on plant systems that were previously kept in balance. As plants weaken, herbivores lose a reliable food source, and predators that depend on those herbivores are affected in turn. This cascading effect moves through multiple levels of the food web, creating changes that extend far beyond the original cause. What begins as a decline in one group becomes a broader ecological imbalance. The loss of frogs also affects how energy moves between environments. Without tadpoles regulating aquatic systems, water quality may decline, reducing the number of organisms that can survive in those environments. At the same time, Fewer adult frogs means less transfer of nutrients from water to land. This weakens the connection between ecosystems, reducing the flow of energy that supports biodiversity. Over time, these changes can alter the structure of entire habitats, making them less resilient to additional stress. Despite these challenges, frogs continue to demonstrate resilience in environments where conditions remain stable enough to support their life cycle. When habitat is preserved, water quality is maintained, and environmental patterns remain predictable, frog populations can recover. This recovery often brings visible changes to the ecosystem, restoring balance to insect populations and improving conditions for other species. These responses highlight how closely frogs are tied to the overall health of their environment. In many ways, frogs act as indicators of environmental stability. Their sensitivity to change allows them to respond quickly to shifts in conditions, making them one of the first groups to show signs of stress. When frog populations begin to decline, it often signals that underlying systems are no longer functioning as they should. Conversely, stable or recovering frog populations suggest that conditions are improving, supporting a wider range of life. This relationship between frogs and environmental health reflects a broader pattern within natural systems. Balance is maintained through interaction, not isolation. Each species contributes in ways that may not be immediately visible, yet become clear when those contributions are removed. Frogs represent one of these connections, linking water and land, predator and prey, stability and change. As these interactions come together, frogs and toads illustrate a balance between vulnerability and resilience that defines their role within ecosystems. Their ability to adapt allows them to survive across a range of conditions, while their sensitivity makes them responsive to disruption. Movement, respiration, reproduction, and environmental interaction all combine to form a system that depends on stability within both water and land environments. When these conditions remain balanced, frogs continue to support the flow of energy and nutrients that sustain ecosystems. Through this balance, frogs maintain connections between aquatic and terrestrial systems, supporting ecological function across multiple levels. Their influence extends beyond their size, shaping relationships that determine how ecosystems respond to change. Protecting the conditions that support frog populations helps preserve these relationships, maintaining the stability of environments that depend on them. In many environments, frogs act as early indicators of environmental change. Because their skin is highly sensitive and their life cycle depends on both water and land, they respond quickly to shifts in conditions that other species may tolerate for longer periods. A decline in frog populations can signal underlying issues such as pollution, habitat fragmentation, or climate instability. This early warning function provides insight into ecosystem health, allowing changes to be recognized before they become more severe. Despite the pressures they face, frogs continue to demonstrate resilience when conditions allow. In areas where habitats are restored and water quality improves, populations can begin to recover. This recovery often leads to noticeable improvements in ecosystem balance as insect populations stabilize and plant systems regain strength. These responses highlight the importance of maintaining the conditions that support frog populations, not only for their survival, but for the stability of the ecosystems they influence. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. I hope you enjoyed learning about frogs and toads.